Hi, my name is Amanda Meyer, and I'm with the North Carolina e-procurement office. We're excited to be here today to talk about the continuation of the sourcing rollout, the changes and enhancements that were made while the system was paused, and what is going to be happening over the next several weeks while we get everyone back into using sourcing. Before we get too far, I want to remind everyone that this is a Teams live event, which means two things. One, this is being recorded, and the recording will be available after the event. And two, you cannot unmute yourselves, but you can ask questions in the chat. To do that, there are 4 steps. First, you're going to click that purple Ask a Question button. Then you click the person icon and enter your name and entity. You can type your question where it says Ask a Question before finally clicking that send arrow. We will be taking up all of the questions and we'll send out responses to everyone in the next few days. With that, I'm going to hand it to David O'Neill.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy procurement lives to come listen to us talk about Ariba sourcing. It's been a while, right? I think we took everything down at the end of April, beginning of May, and it's been a long, arduous process for the folks here at PNC and the folks with our Accenture team trying to get this Ariba sourcing module back up and running and working for the best interest of the state. What I'm going to tell you we did is, those of you that were on sprints 1, 2, and 3, which are all of you, we took your feedback as you went through your initial sprints back at the end of last year or the beginning of this year and tried to apply most of that to enhance the system to be more user-friendly for you. I would say listen to what Amanda's going to present to you today, have an open mind about it, and try to remember what it looked like, because when you see what it looks like today and moving forward, it has been enhanced and it is much, much better for you guys, the public procurement professionals of North Carolina. And so I don't want to steal Daniel Dennison's thunder, because when we click next on this next slide, he's got a whole bunch of stuff he's got to go over. And if I keep talking, I'm going to take all of his information. So Daniel, I think I'm going to hit tag to you. I'm going to stay here. If I need to come in and chime in, I will, because you guys know me. I have no problem talking to anybody about anything. So Daniel, tag, you are it.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks everyone for attending today. I'm Daniel Dennison for any new folks, and I'm with the North Carolina office and helping folks out with the sourcing process. As you know, we've been trying to build on the sourcing rollout from last year, and we've been reaching out to gather information. I know some of you have heard from us, and we wanted to find out about what works, what didn't work, and how we could improve the process. And I'm glad to say we've heard the feedback, and we've been trying to include some of those key changes into this next release, and we are excited to show you those changes today. So what are those changes? We really sort of bucketized them into 3 groups. First is sourcing to contract improvements. We heard it was difficult to turn a solicitation into a contracting document. I will say, if we heard anything, we heard that a lot. So Amanda's going to be demonstrating that today. There is a new option of where more of the event content is now contained within the solicitation document. We also heard that putting the execution page and vendor signature would be helpful to have in the solicitation, not as a separate document. So we made this change. Also, from the preliminary discussions we had, everyone seemed pretty excited about this. So we're happy to show you this one. We've also worked with PNC on reviewing templates and also streamlining some of the templates in the system. So it wasn't just within the system work. Some of these documents, PNC went back and did a hard review on them, made sure that they made sense in the context of what we were trying to do. So thank you to the PNC team for that. The second bucket was really around additional process and document guidance. we clearly heard there were some areas about the new sourcing process where people were confused. So we went back, we huddled with PNC, we reached out, we've added additional documents and new tasks to help guide users. Example of that was we clarified some question about the hub form, and we now have a referenceable hub form actually in the system versus agencies having to go out and pull it themselves. The third bucket is really agency-based configurations. And we heard that agencies needed some accommodation in their routing and approvals. We wanted to offer a more flexible solution, so we refined the user experience by customizing the team tab if requested. Also wanted to make sure it was easier for you to know what your PNC support team was, like who's actually working on your request. So we've broken down, rather than just a general system request group, we've broken that down into smaller teams in the system so you actually can see your service team now. So it is better visibility for PNC and for the agency. So we're hoping you'll see in Amanda's demonstration today some really good changes to make your life easier. She's going to take you through those changes, and I mentioned earlier, please add your questions to the chat and the team will get back to you. Let's go ahead and go to the rollout timeline. So we only have users here today that are involved in sprints 1 and 3. You can see that the pilot hypercare, we're already back up with PNC. Had a lot of training with PNC over the last couple of days so that they can better plan to support all the agencies. But Sprints 1 is going to be October 11th. Sprint 2 is October 15th. Sprint 3 is November 15th. So as you can see, our plan is to bring the agencies back up again with these sprints over the next couple months. Okay, so the big question, let's go to the next slide. So where is your agency? I will pause just for a second because I realize no one is paying attention to me. They are looking, you're looking for where your agency is on the sprint chart. Okay, so hopefully you found it. Why did we make these decisions? So really the decisions were around in what agency goes in which wave was based on a combination of factors. We had to look at the number of users, the volumes we anticipate through the tool, and then also the service team. And we wanted to make sure the PNC service support teams had distributed volume so they could adequately help answer questions, get back with you. So our goal here was to make sure that everyone is fully supported. And David, I don't know if you had anything else that maybe you wanted to jump in here.
And so I will state that for those of you that are looking at this screenshot and going, oh man, I got to start October 11th, or others of you might be going, oh man, I got to start November 15th. That's way too soon. Well, I apologize because we're starting October 11th, November 1st, or November 15th with these sprint rollouts. Like Daniel mentioned, there was a lot of logic put into making these assignments for all the factors that he brought up. Now, I'm not going to give you a get out of jail free card. I'm not saying that we will actually change it. But if you have a valid reason, I determine validity. If you have a valid reason that you need to delay or you want to start sooner, let us know. And we may, how's that for procurement term, may be able to accommodate you. I'm not saying we're going to be able to, we may be able to, because if you shuffle one, it disrupts the rest of the schedule altogether, okay? And so we thought about this and thought about this, and this is the plan that we came up with as a team to roll this back out. Because guess what? It's going to be rolled back out, right? If any of you are like me, I'm a rip the Band-Aid off guy, right? Let's just knock it out and be done with it. The more I get to get into the system and use it and learn it, the better off I'm going to be. And I'll be able to do that sooner rather than later if I start on sprint 1 versus maybe sprint 3. Okay? But it's coming. It's here. We're going to have to do it. And for those of you that have done it before, you'll see a little bit of the changes, but hopefully you'll see it as a very positive step in the right direction as we move forward.
Awesome, David. Thank you. So I guess we won't delay anymore. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Amanda for the big reveal. Amanda.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. And thanks, David, for your messages as well. All right. So Daniel got to tell you about the enhancements. I get to show you the enhancements. Y'all have been in the system, you've seen the tool, but what we are going to do now is go in and see the enhancements that were made during the pause. So we are going to show those details through 5 demos. We're going to discuss the impacts on the sourcing project and the sourcing event. We're going to talk through vendor messages and bid openings before we go into sourcing requests and what happens at the end of the sourcing process. This slide is a little busy. These are the sourcing process options. So we are going to show you demos 1, 2, and 3 through a solicitation that is within our agency's delegation. That's the top option. What that means is that our agency is going to handle creating the sourcing project, conducting the sourcing event, and then managing the contract. There may be times, indicated by the purple stars, where we might need to interact with PNC, whether it's a waiver, an exception, an award recommendation approval. There are different times, even when we handle the process within our agency, that we might need that feedback. Our second, for demos 4 and 5, the second example we're going to do is going to be when it's over our delegation. And so we, as the agency, are going to start a sourcing request. Today, that is done via an e-form. This is the new way to do that is through the sourcing request, which then funnels through the tool to the Division of Purchasing Contracts for them to create the sourcing project and to conduct the sourcing event before they hand it back to us, the agency, to manage that contract. So I just want to be clear that demos 1, 2, and 3 are going to be within our delegation. So the example we're going to do today is we are going to be Wake Tech purchasing, and we are going to be doing an ice machine repair services solicitation. So that's the first example we're going to see. And then we are going to be a Department of Public Safety purchaser creating a sourcing request for security cameras. So those are the 2 examples in these 2 different processes, but all of this should be pretty familiar to you. So we are going to go into the system now to begin our sourcing project as a Wake Tech purchaser for an ice machine repair. All right. Here. Go into here. All right, so this is sourcing, right? Y'all have seen this before. And we are going to start by seeing this sourcing project. Here on the attributes page, which we have filled out, a lot is the same. Our entity is going to be Wake Tech. Our execution strategy is still full or light sourcing. We are going to pick light sourcing. And here with the solicitation vehicle is the first time we're going to see a minor difference. Rather than 3 choices for non-IT, we are going to have just 1, non-IT solicitation. But don't worry, the other questions are still going to be answered. So approval scenario is where we're going to choose goods versus services. For this, the ice machine repair, it is going to be a service. And this is where we see the biggest change, is that there is now a template question that we must answer. And this is where we're going to pick whether it's an IFB or an RFP. For this, because it's a simple service, it's going to be an IFB. And so that is what I'm going to select here. So again, in the past, back in the spring, there were 3 choices. It was non-IT RFP or non-IT IFB. Now we are picking just non-IT, and then we are going to set services and IFB, and that is what is going to determine the solicitation document template that we see. I'm going to cancel all this. You guys don't need to see me fill out this form, but let's see what that looks like in action. So here is my ice machine repair service project. This one has already been created for me. All the fields have been filled out. Here on this overview tab, I can see it all. So I see that non-IT solicitation, I see services, I see that I am Wake Tech, and I've got my commodity. All that stuff is there. That's just the way it was before. If I need to make any changes to that information that I input in the attributes page, I click Edit Overview. And in this Edit Overview, I see my non-IT solicitation and I see my services, but notice I don't see that IFB versus RFP. That is because it is a template question, and so I actually have to click over to this tab. So for some reason, I had selected RFP when I set this up, and I was like, oh, Amanda, this is a simple service. It should be an IFB. I could come back here and change that right here. So minor change. It used to be that all that information was on that overview tab, and now this is in the template question. Not a huge change, not a big deal, but just to be aware. Luckily, I set it up correctly the first time, so I'm going to hit cancel and go back to my overview tab. So first change we saw was that non-IT option, and that the questions are still being answered, whether it's goods or services, IFB or RFP. We just answer them in a slightly different format. And as we discussed, that is going to impact which solicitation document template appears. And this right here, y'all, this is the big change in terms of enhancements. A lot of people we heard from a lot of people that coming out of solicitation without a signature was not comfortable. And so here in every template, the execution page has been added back to the template. We will see in the next demo, when we go into the sourcing event, that we are actually going to be getting that entire solicitation document back. And with that, there's been this shift in the balance between what goes in the solicitation document and what remains in the event content. So the choices I made in that, the attributes on the overview, is what will determine which template I see here. But the fact for all of them is that I'm going to be getting that entire document back with a signature, which makes it a little bit easier to then flip it into that contract workspace, which we're going to see at the very end. So this document here, IFB services, is because I chose services and then I chose IFB for my template question. And that is why I see this. If I edited those, it would change. There are a couple other little enhancements though that I want to show you. So this is the big one. And again, we're going to go into that a lot when we talk about our sourcing event in our second demo. But also here on this documents tab, some of the other feedback that we got was about the bid tabulation. So before you would enter your bid tab in IPS directly, some people found a way that was comfortable for them. Some people were looking for more direction on that. So we have added a final bid tabulation template as well as a preliminary bid tabulation template to the list of documents that are available. This is not required. You don't have to use this, but it's there for you if you need it. Again, that was something that we heard. There was some confusion around that, and so that has been added. You will also see that here on the Tasks tab. So again, this Tasks tab, none of these actions are required, but it is a wonderful checklist to help you go through. Again, y'all are very aware of your process and you know where you're going, but sometimes it's just nice to see, like, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? So in section phase 5, rather, you can see where that bid tabulation, this was here before. What has changed is that there's now a little bit more direction. So if you click on the view task details, or if you just hover over that post preliminary bid tabulation, you're going to see that additional instruction, as well as the document we just looked at on the documents tab is linked there, so you can use that. In the phase 6, we are also going to see that our final bid tabulation has some more instructions on it, and that there is that bid tabulation template for that as well. There are 3 new tasks in phase 6 that I think are important to point out. Again, this is a checklist, and that doesn't mean that every single solicitation you do is going to go through every single one of these. But we didn't stop to ask about BAFOs before, and I realize that not every solicitation needs a BAFO, but when they are needed, this is when it happens, and so this is now set up so it can serve as a reminder for y'all. The last one is this create contract workspace for each awarded vendor. So we taught y'all in the training that the last step of the solicitation is flipping it to that contract workspace. Now we've added it as an actual task for you to see. And we're going to actually see that in action, not on this first example where it's internal, but we're going to do it when P&C has bid it out for us and we get that back, and then we can turn it into the contract workspace. It's pretty cool. All right, that is the tasks. And then we've got our team tab. And Daniel did a great job of explaining this. Back in the spring when we were in the system, we had P&C set up as one big group. And while that was easier in some ways because you just added the group, we found that our agency users knew what service team they wanted to work with or that they were associated with, and it was actually harder to figure out when it was the big group. It was also harder for P&C because they were used to getting things directly from their people, not getting the big bucket, and so caused confusion both ways. And so the reason that we see Service Team 4 on this team tab is because Wake Tech is associated with Team 4, and that is who created this sourcing project. This does not mean that P&C Service Team 4 is automatically added to anything. It just makes it easier to add them if you need them. So again, thinking back to that slide with that within delegation example, there's a couple times, whether it's an exemption or a waiver, or at the end, this is a ice machine repair service. So if I'm going to need approval for my award recommendation, it is nice to have that team on there so that it's easy to add them and to gain that approval through the system rather than going outside the system for that. So that is the highlights of the enhancements to the service project. And we are going to now move to our second demo. That second demo is going to involve the sourcing event. So we're going to go back to our Documents tab, and we are going to go from this container that holds everything related to our solicitation into our sourcing event itself. Now, in real life, when we're doing this, you know that we would have uploaded our completed solicitation document here, and we would have made sure that we had followed all of the tasks. We are skipping ahead to highlight the changes. So here in our sourcing event, we are going to go in and edit, and we are going to name this non-IT agency IFB event template is not a great name. This is our ice machine repair and we would want to add in, we may want to add in that event number when we've got it, and so on. For today, we're going to just stick with ice machine repair for week. Our description is ice machine repair, and we are going to click OK. That part was no different. Our rules are not changed. We're still going to be picking fixed time and putting in our calendar date and our closing time, which for a lot of y'all is 2 p.m. That hasn't changed. It's our content here that is going to, where we're going to see a lot of those enhancements. So again, based on that non-IT solicitation and choosing services and choosing IFB, the template I got for the solicitation document was for simple services. And now my content needs to balance against that, right? So the first two sections of the content haven't changed. When we look at 3, even 3.1 is still the same, right? This is where we upload that completed document. It's when we get to vendor questions that we're going to see our first change. And again, when we get to later, we're going to see that we're getting that whole solicitation document back. This is where we're uploading it. The vendor's going to return it a little bit later, and we'll see that. For vendor questions, this is similar to what it was before. The difference is that previously we provided a template, a Word document for the vendor to ask their question. Now we are directing the vendors to put their questions on the event messages page directly. And we're going to see in just a little bit why that is awesome. We know that there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. We know that vendors sometimes still reach out via an email and so on, but having this direction, and there's some instructions about that too, this is going to be a great direction to move. We also see section 3.3 and 3.4 are new to us. They were included in the solicitation document before, but now they are right here so the vendor can click on them. They don't have to do anything with them. There's no action required from the vendor, but they are there for their reference. So those are the big differences. One other impact of some of this new content in section 3 is that when we talk about addendums in just a little bit, it's going to come in section 3.5. Used to be section 3.3. Not a huge change, but something to note. All right. So section 4, also unchanged. It is the same as it was. Section 5, the price submittal. This is where we would put our pricing sheet to be for the vendor to fill out and return. There are a couple options with this. This is the most common, is for it to be a separate pricing sheet, but do know that this tool remains flexible. And what that means is if I need to put that pricing table in my solicitation document, I could remove this section 5 and not have the pricing submittal be separate. It would just be part of the solicitation document. Additionally, if I only have one price that I'm getting, I may not need a whole attachment for it. I could change this from asking the vendor to attach a file to just asking the vendor what their price is for item A. So this is, again, it remains flexible. Those options are still there. This is set up to be the most common so that people are doing the least amount of changing, but it is that pricing submittal sheet being separate is the kind of default process, and that is what you're seeing right here. So as the Wake Tech purchaser, as I'm setting this up, I would just click on this, edit this section, and attach my pricing file for the vendor to use and then fill out and attach back to me. So that's the same as it was if you were doing that attachment. So just wanted to call that out, that it can be changed if you have a different plan for your solicitation. For our solicitation, that's where we would attach that pricing sheet. Section 6 is where we are going to see the bulk of our changes to the content. And like I said, it's really great. The vendor response is going to include in section 6.1 the vendor returning that solicitation document after they've completed it and signed it. They will upload it. So that is exciting news. The other part of that is we heard some feedback about vendors, sometimes struggling to get all of the bits of information together. And so one thing that's really cool about this tool is that from the vendor's perspective, they are going to be required to attach a file in this section before they can complete their response. And I can see that if I click on that section, the response required, yes, participant required right here. This is what is going to put a red asterisk on it for that vendor and make it so that they have to attach a file in this section. If for some weird reason you didn't want them to have to return a solicitation document, you can obviously change that, but it is defaulted to what makes the most sense, which is that you would like that solicitation document back. All right, so that is section 6.1. We will also see in section 6.2 that our hub form is back. That was another piece of feedback that we got from our agencies, was that we didn't see the hub form in the solicitation document. We also didn't see the hub form in the content. And so this was having to be manually added for every solicitation, but here it is. And the great news is the hub form doesn't change for every solicitation. So the form is already here for the vendor. They just have to return it back. And you, as the purchaser, just need to say, great, hub form is there, check, check. So that is super easy. In general, kind of as an overview, these next attachments are the things that may help you determine which vendor is going to win the award. It is not necessarily information that needs to be part of your contract document. And that is why it is included here rather than in the solicitation document. So the customer reference form, that process has been a little bit streamlined. It used to be 3 separate documents with attachment questions. Now it's all just one form. The location of workers, the certification of financial condition, all of those are in the content. They are required from the vendor until you get down to section 6.6. That alternate response is the first optional one, right? That one, obviously not every vendor has an alternate response, and so that is not a required field. So this balance is really cool. It's great to see these documents all there for us, and then that the vendor is required to attach a file in order to complete their submission. Also note, this is a services path, right? We chose services because of the ice machine repair. If we had chosen goods, if we were doing an IFB for goods under our delegation, so we're handling that, that EO50 price matching attachment H would also appear. So there's other things. Again, these different paths will give you different options. Obviously, EO50 is not as relevant for services, so it's not there. Once your content is complete, and so you've got all your stuff, you've checked all your boxes, you've uploaded all your forms in 3.1 and 5.1, then you are ready to continue on. You would create your discovery posting, publish that. You would publish the whole sourcing event here on the summary section 4. You would then take that discovery URL, publish it in IPS, all those steps. But what I wanted you to see today, what I wanted to highlight was this content change and the fact that that solicitation document is coming back with a signature. So we're going to see those responses next. But I want to show you one thing real quick before we go over there. All right, so we are going to exit out of this, turn to our project. We're actually going to go into a different project. The good news is here today, we get to cheat a little bit. So in real life, obviously, once we have posted our solicitation, we're going to have to wait a little bit. Most of us have a Q&A period where we are waiting for some vendor questions to come in, and then we're going to post an addendum with those answers. So just to give you a quick preview of what you are going to see, I'm going to hop into an ice machine repair service. So that same project, but we've kind of hit a time machine, and we're going to have a couple questions in there. And I want you guys to see how those questions come in when the vendor uses the event messages tab. All right, so we're going to go into this one. And here on this messages tab, we are going to see a lot of information, right? So this one, hit that time warp, has been out there for a little bit. And so we've gotten some questions, and we are, if we wanted to, this one is all the way in pending selection. So we're looking at one that is all the way through. We're going to use this for our bid opening also. But just to show you that if a couple weeks ago I had gone in, if I get to this messages page and then I hit this table options button and I choose to look at just messages from participants, this is going to reduce my list a little bit. I'm going to see right now, because I've already gotten responses from the vendors, that those are there too. But in real life, this was just the Q&A period, I would only have these questions. If I go ahead and hit show details right here, I'm going to see my questions appear. And what's really cool is that I can actually export this information. And just for the sake of y'all seeing it, if I had exported that and taken out the responses that would normally come after the Q&A period, I just have my questions. If I get rid of all these columns and I add an answers right here, I can easily get from my vendors' questions, extract them, answer them, and create that addendum. Again, there's documents for that and so on, but just in terms of getting the data and getting it answered, this can be a useful tool. But now we're going to hit that time warp one more time. Q&A is over. We've posted our addendum. Our timing, the event has closed, and our sourcing event is in pending selection status, right? That is when we know we are ready. Just real quick, I'm going to click out of this and go back to my my dashboard, because I want you guys to see here in the notifications, when those questions came in for that ice machine repair, they appeared in my notifications. And when my ice machine repair service event passed its deadline, it told me that it's ready for those envelopes to be open, and it went into pending selection status. So there's a lot of interaction right here. So if your sourcing dashboard doesn't have notifications, that tab on there, the portlet on there today, make sure that it does. It's a really useful thing. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in here. Again, we are, just to set the stage, we've progressed. It's, roughly 10 days after we initially posted that sourcing event, and now we are ready to look at those vendor responses. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our suppliers tab, and just note these two vendors both participated. So I'm looking for 2 vendor responses. We know that in real life, you often see many vendors listed here. Some of them might say intends to participate. They might have other notice. They might not even have any of that. And of the many vendors listed here, a couple of them may have participated. This is obviously a perfect world where both vendors looked at it and responded. And so just recognize that this status column is what you're looking for, and seeing participated is what indicates that you will have a full response from them. When I go back to this content tab, I also see those 2 vendors here, but I don't have any information from them yet because I haven't opened their responses. So the first thing I'm going to want to do after My deadline has passed. It's after 2 o'clock on the day. I click actions and I open those envelopes. And then I just click open envelope again. And now, I'm going to see under these two that I have all of those attachments that I was waiting for. I wanted their location workers, all that stuff. But this isn't the easiest way to look at them. If I just click actions and then download those supplier attachments, I need to select which items I want to bring back, which is all of them. I want everything. And then I click download attachments. And that is going to create a zip file for me that has all of those vendor responses in there. So if I click into, so I have the 2 vendors that participated, and I click in and I see their return solicitation document, I see that pricing workbook, and I see all of that vendor information, the customer references, hub form, all of that, that might help me determine which vendor is going to win that award, in addition to obviously their pricing. So this is what I would use to then send on to my evaluation committee. There are a couple options at that point. I'm going to, I want to note again that anybody on the team tab, your team tab is the best way to add people to be able to see the sourcing event and be able to see those responses. Alternatively, emails can be passed outside of the system with attachments, and that way they can see those responses as well. So there's a couple options there. The way to get back to the Teams tab to see who is on there, who can see this, is to click Actions and go to View Project. So that's the way I get from my event back to my project. So in this case, I'm going to go to my team tab and see that I could add evaluation committee members. I could add, you know, whoever else on my team needs to be able to help me review that before we make our award recommendation. Right, so that was our demo number 3. We have now done demo 1, the sourcing project, demo 2, the sourcing event, demo 3, the bid opening. And with that, we're going to kind of change gears. We're going to leave this ice machine repair service project. And we are going to go into the security cameras accessories request. So just to be clear, again, kind of set the stage a little bit. Our first 3 examples all happened when it was us, the agency, Wake Tech, who was able to, because it was within our delegation, follow the entire project event, and then we could go on and create the contract from this. Our next example is going to be when it's over our delegation. For this, we are going to be leaving the Wake Tech. We are going to be putting on our Department of Public Safety purchaser hat, and we are going to recognize that these security cameras are outside of our delegation. And so we are going to need to create not a sourcing project, we are going to create a sourcing request. Again, sourcing requests are like the e-forms you're filling out today. This is my way of giving this information to the Division of Purchase and Contracts to bid this out on our behalf. And so when I click Create Sourcing Request here in my Common Actions portlet, a lot of the options are going to be the same as when I create a sourcing project. I'm going to choose my entity, Department of Public Safety. I'm going to choose my solicitation vehicle. It's non-IT. I'm going to choose my approval scenario. This time it's goods, right? Cameras. And that is going to pop up this solicitation question. This is an IFB. So these questions, like I said, are pretty similar to what I was answering for the project, but up here at the top it says sourcing request. Let's go into one that has been filled out already. So our security cameras accessories request. Here we are going to see that information that we filled out in attributes, Department of Public Safety, non-IT, goods. Again, if I needed to change anything, I can go to Actions and Edit Overview. The Documents tab is going to be where we are going to put the information that is needed for the P&C, what we would normally attach, right? So in our solicitation document, we are going to put, it's good to note that because of the choices we made in our attributes, this IFB agency goods is the template that appeared for us. Once we have populated that with the information that we need, the agency solicitation document, that's us giving our rough draft to P&C. The pricing submittal workbook, again, is a great thing. Like, they don't need to figure that out on their own, but they do, you can provide that so that they can put it into the sourcing project. So you putting these documents in your sourcing request allows P&C to put them into the sourcing project. All right, so those are the documents. And then it's here on the tasks tab that you would go ahead and work on gaining the approval of the sourcing request. And that is when you would you kick this off in order to send it. So when I first started, it's just with me at the Department of Public Safety. But when I begin this task, that is when it goes to P&C for them to start their process. And that is, I guess I want to show you this kind of continuation of demo 4. Let me show you real quick. In this one right here, this one has gotten a little bit further. We are going to see that this was sent to P&C and the gain approval of sourcing request has a check mark by it. So that is the way that I created this sourcing request can tell where it is. I'm also going to get an email when that happens saying that that approval is done. When P&C approved that, this create sourcing project as a follow-on project appeared, and notice it's the P&C agency approver that is doing that. So they approve that sourcing request and then they create that project. If I go here to this overview tab, I can see that project, which is really cool, guys. It allows us a lot of visibility into what is happening. So if there was something wrong with our sourcing request, there might be some back and forth, right? If they need additional, like I forgot to put the pricing attachment in, then I might need to, they might say, hey, we need that, or there can be back and forth. And the message board is really where a lot of that is going to happen, unless they handle it offline. Once that task is complete, that's when I'll get the check mark and I'll be able to see that follow-on project. I'll see that follow-on project here on the overview tab. And so if I click into that, notice this is now a sourcing project. So I just left the sourcing request that I created, and now I'm looking at the sourcing project that the Division of Purchasing Contracts created. I can see that sourcing event. I can go into it and monitor it just like they can. This is already in pending selection, which is pretty great. And so I could see that these suppliers participated. I can even download their responses myself. So there's a lot that can be done because this tool, everything is within the system. So that's going to lead us to our last example. And our last demo, rather. We're still in our second example. Our fifth demo is going to be talking about the creation of the contract workspace. And so let me go back here to the dashboard again. to show you. Again, this was a sourcing request that I started. I sent it to the Division of Purchasing Contract. They got it. I had sent everything they needed, so they approved it. They created that project. They sent it out to the vendors. And then once it comes back, they're going to ask me to help with that award recommendation, right? So I can go into the project, I can see that information, I can create my award recommendation. And then once they've given the thumbs up for who it's going to be, they are actually going to, and I'm going to click into this right here. On this Documents tab, slide, if I go into the Sourcing Project and look at the Documents tab, they are going to put that executed contract document in the project for me. So what that means is that when the vendor returns the solicitation document, it's got their signature on it. And when the when P&C feels good about the vendor, they're going to sign it, and then you are going to get that contract document with all those signatures, and you're going to be able to create that contract workspace. And there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go here to the Overview tab, and you can click Actions and create a follow-on project. That's going to be the most straightforward way. You can see that that's ready for you to do here in your to-do portlet. So that is where, when you created that sourcing request and sent the task to P&C for them to look at it, it showed up in P&C's to-do queue. Then they approved it, did all of the project and event work, and then now that it is past all that, they sent that last task back to you. And it's going to show up in your to-do queue that you need to create the contract workspace for the security cameras and accessories project. So I can see that here. I can also see here that it's ready for me. And all I have to do is click Actions and Follow on Project. Lying, I just went into the request. I need to get into the project, pardon me. So when I click this Follow on Project, it's going to give me the choice to create that contract workspace for procurement. I can take that executed contract document, do whatever I need to do with it. So maybe we need to add our signatures as well, or whatever we need to do in-house to make that into a contract workspace. But by clicking this, I'm going to click in here because we already started it. I'm going to start that process, and I can move that document, that signed executed contract document, into that contracts folder. And I am almost all the way ready to publish this contract workspace. So that is all the way through, right? We talked from creating our own sourcing of project, doing that event, handling the bid. That should also end in the same contract workspace. But also, when we just started as a sourcing request and then P&C bids it out, we should still be ending in that contract workspace. So some of the bells and whistles have changed. Again, I really like that event messages. I'm pretty excited about that. I think the biggest change is that solicitation document being returned. I think that we're gonna find that that streamlines things a little bit. And so that concludes our 5th demonstration. And I'm gonna head back to our deck for a moment. All right, so Wake Tech ice machine repair. That was our first example. We did that. Then we went to DPS and we were sending our request. P&C bid it out for us, and then we came back and created that contract workspace. So just to be clear, there's a lot of back and forth on these. Some of them we do all by ourselves. Some of them we need that interaction. But we got to see all of the highlights of those enhancements along the way. So before we go, we are going to talk about some of what's going to happen next. So here we go with our next steps. First, we are going to attend the webinar. You guys win. You're already here. So big check mark for that. A recording is going to be available for users who were unable to attend today. So that is just important to note. You guys have been in the system. You have seen it all before, but some of you didn't get to use it a ton before it went on pause. And so I want to be clear that there's going to be post go live support coming your way as well. We will be doing coaching sessions. There will be additional training that's more end-to-end training rather than just showing you the highlights. So that is important to note. We will be working with the sourcing readiness agents, your purchasing leadership to get that stuff planned. So I want to thank everyone for their time today. Appreciate you coming out. We appreciate all that you do. And I hope that you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.